Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
And now, WTOE Radio Live, brought to you by throughoureyes.org.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life.
Hey, Jerry, how you doing today?
Doing great. I'm looking on the positive. It's the right side. How you doing, Janie?
I'm fabulous. I like laughter. I'm on the light side.
Hey, you know what that means?
I think that means we're always looking on the bright side of life.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life.
I'm so excited. The show's about to begin.
So am I, with my straw hat and cane.
I got my tap shoes on. We're ready to go.
Come on, everybody. It's time for the show.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of
life. Welcome to On the Bright Side with Janie and Jerry. I'm Jerry. And where's Janie? Janie? Janie's not here tonight. Or is she hiding on me? No, Janie's not here. She'll tell you about where she went next month on our show on December the 11th. But I'm here, Lenny's here, Laurie's here, and you're with us. And that's the best part. It wouldn't be a show without you. Of course, I can't see where you are or who you are, but if you'd like to call in and tell me, you can call at 1-888-572-0141. That's 1-888-572-0141. Well, I just want to tell you what's been going on here in North Carolina. Guess what we had last night falling from the sky? Snow. Can you imagine snow in North Carolina? My grandchildren were so happy. It was about 8, 9 o'clock. They ran outside. It wasn't enough to stick around, but it might be a what's that? A harbinger of things to come? I thought a harbinger was a bird. I'm not too sure. But anyway, one of the things that we did this month was Madeline and I, with Jerry, Odelay, Jansen, and Aubriana, grandchildren, we went to the Cheesecake Factory. Boy, you could eat yourself out. Oh, it's so much. And Lenny, if you want to show that picture of Madeline and I as we were just sitting there after we ate our meal. Boy, I tell you, that cheesecake I had pineapple upside down cheesecake. And they told me I had to eat it upside down. That was the most horrible part. But we have a few things to talk about tonight. I don't know if you'll listen, but I'll be talking. Sometimes I don't even listen to myself. But we have some interesting videos, funny videos. We're going to talk about some tech tip and all those interesting things. And for all of those folk from New Jersey who went to the National Federation of the Blind of New Jersey convention, I'd like you to call in and talk about your experiences there. I was able to catch some of it on Saturday due to through the auspices of WTOE Radio. Thank you, Lenny. And but here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a 2-minute break. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more. And we're going to watch some videos and listen to some videos and have a good time. So please don't go away.
Oh. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
When you go to court, you want a lawyer to speak for you. But in an emergency, when you can't speak for yourself, you want Medic Alert. Its emblem alerts your rescuers to call the Medic Alert Network, where they'll find out 24/7 about any medical conditions or serious allergies you have. Medic Alert will also contact your family. When it comes to your health, you want peace of mind. Get the emblem that speaks for you. For more information, call 1-800-ID-ALERT or visit medicalert.org.
You put your keys between your knuckles. You walk in well-lit areas. Someone approaches you and you grasp your cell phone tightly, ready at any second to dial the number for help. You lock the door behind you, once, twice, maybe 3 times. Now you feel safe, secure. You think you've made the right choices to protect yourself. Think again. Because if you're not making healthy choices, you could be one of the nearly 2 out of 3 women killed by cancer, diabetes, heart disease, or stroke. So eat right, get active, don't smoke, see your doctor, and live. Learn to protect yourself from yourself at 1-866-399-6789 or visit us at everydaychoices.org. A message from the American Cancer Society, American Diabetes Association, American Heart Association, and the Ad Council.
How would you feel if your children went to school and weren't taught to read? Today, less than 10% of blind children are taught to read Braille. Literacy is a basic right. Learning to read Braille is the key to success. Without it, a blind child doesn't have a chance. For more information on Braille literacy and blindness, contact me, Mark Maurer, President, National Federation of the Blind, 410-659-9314.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
Welcome back to On the Bright Side with Janie and Jerry. As I said before, Janie's not with us tonight, but she will tell us all about where she is when we do our next show on the second Wednesday, December the 11th of next month, which would be December. And for all of you out there who would like to call in and chat with us, it's 1-888-572-0141. That's 1-888-572-0141. I miss Janie's laughter when I say that. But I just want to talk a little bit about a video I got. It's a very short video, but it's funny. It's about an Italian auction, and they're auctioning off a very expensive $1 million Ming vase. And I don't really understand everything that's said, but I do understand the ending. And so, Lenny, if you could play that, and we'll see or listen to what happens to the vase.
Seuraava kohde on Min dynastian aikainen vaasi. Lähtöhinta 500 000. Olkaa hyvä, tehkää tarjouksia. 600 000 siellä herra. 700 000 puhelimessa. 800 000 rouva. 900 000 puhelimessa. 1 000 000 siellä herra. Tuleeko muita tarjouksia? Ei tule. 1 000 000 ensimmäinen. 1 000 000 toinen. 1 000 000 kolmas.
I get a kick out of that every time I hear it. Then I heard the next thing they did was they auctioned off the pieces. Could you imagine? That's something like the Three Stooges would do. But can you imagine that auctioneer when he's, by the way, what the difference is between a vase and a vase? A vase is more expensive. So let me tell you what's going on a little bit. Then I got a very funny video in about maybe, let's see, about 10 minutes or so. I'll play another funny video. But I upgraded to iOS 7 with my iPhone. And it's got some good things. It's got some bad things. I'm currently not talking to Siri now. She said some things to me, which I asked her a question. She said, "Is this about you or me?" which I didn't think was quite appropriate. Then I asked her, I was very sincere. I said, Siri, tell me a poem. And she said, no. So I said, Siri, tell me a poem. And she says, not at this time. So I said, Siri, tell me a poem. And she said, roses are red, violets are blue. Don't you have anything else better to do? I said, oh, those people in Cupertino, Florida, really coming up with some funny things. But I'm really enjoying some of the new features. And, maybe one of these days we'll get somebody who knows a lot more than I do about iPhone and the different apps. And one of the things that I like is the handwriting. I was talking to Rick Fox about a month or so ago. We were talking about the new iOS 7 and that you have to put a password in. And as you know, if you use a VoiceOver for the iPhone, it's going to read or talk out and say out loud what your passcode is, which is not very good. I mean, you don't want people to hear it. So with this new handwriting, where you actually, and if you understand what I'm saying, good. And if you don't, you could always write in. I'll give you the email address later. We can talk about it, or you can call, or you can just stay curious. But you put on your rotor the handwriting, and you switch it, and it goes automatically to the numbers, and you actually draw like a 7, a 1. I couldn't do that backwards. A 4, or a 3, and you actually draw that with your finger. No one could see it. It doesn't say it out loud, and you can put it in. It's also good for writing text. If you could remember how to use your capital letters, it has punctuation. Haven't figured out the comma yet. So if anybody out there knows how to put a comma in, for the period, you just like that. For the exclamation point, you do the little circle and then underline. But I couldn't get the comma down. I don't know. Kept on saying parentheses. But that's one of the things that I found about the iOS 7. Some people haven't upgraded yet. They said that, well, they're waiting for all the bugs to come out. Well, they're already at iOS 7.3, I think. But, I mean, it's free. VoiceOver is free, which is good. And I like that. I'm still into my Pandora, listening to my music. Still using Acura Radio. Still using Foursquare. And as I was talking about the Cheesecake Factory before, a lot of people notice when I use the Foursquare, which is an app that you report where you are, like for eating or watching a movie somewhere at a theater, or where you are at a museum. The preponderance, the most of what I do concerns eating. So one person emailed me or on the Facebook, because you also can see my posts on Facebook, put down, is that all you do is eat? But I enjoy going out to eat. I mean, if you can see my stomach, you would know that. But anyway, 1-888-572-0141. I am
Jerry,
tired of hearing.
I have a question for you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
How are you with the virtual keyboard versus a real keyboard? Have you tried that on the phone?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have a very small, it's about that big, almost like the size of a Hershey bar, keyboard, and I use that, but it's kind of hard. But I've adapted myself pretty well to the keyboard, to the virtual keyboard, where you would run your finger over to a letter, find the letter F, pick your finger up, and it'll say F. And then you roll over into G, and it'll say G, and it's a little higher pitch. So I kind of like that. Now, you could buy from Apple, or if you have any other kind of tablet or Android device, I'm sure you can buy a larger keyboard. But I found that what I'm doing with the virtual one sort of works. Now, writing text and emails, I prefer really my laptop.
Yeah.
Because then I can write a lot of stuff. As that email I sent you the other day from my iPhone, because I use the dictation, and it'll say something. I'll say something, and I'll say, what was it listening to? Was it really listening to me?
You know, the email I sent you back was, what? What are you talking about?
So I just I just wrote a comment about the dictation. And you know, I'm wondering if I should, they have the automatic signature that says sent from my iPhone. I wonder if I should add to, if you see any strange entries, it might be from the dictation sent from my iPhone. That might be a good disclaimer.
I apologize in advance for any improprieties.
Yes,
said.
Especially anything that rhymes with glass or something like that. But so the new iPad Air is out. It's very thin. I also heard that the iPad Mini was upgraded, I think. I'm not too sure. But they're going to go right from the iPad 2 to the iPad Air. I don't know if they're going to be doing that third and fourth generation, because you know, I'm looking. They're kind of on the expensive side, but I kind of think it would be nice to have one. I like it for the music, and one of the things that I would encourage everybody out there, no matter what kind of device you have, if you have a device or iPad or a Sony device, look for podcasts, look for information about it. There's so much information out there on the internet where you can learn how to use things. There's a new app for the iPhone for the Bard, which is for I'm trying to know what BARD stands for. I have to look that up. But it's for the National Library Service for the blind and with the use of blind and physically handicapped, where you can download and listen to a book, like an Audible book, on your iPhone. And we'll have to look up some information about that and put that on the air, maybe not in December, because December we have a packed show. We're getting a very special guest in December, all the way from up north. So tell your little kiddies out there to listen in. Let me see. It's about 1/4 there, Len?
Yes, it is.
Well, what I'd like to do now is there's a very funny comedian by the name of George Carlin. Now, some of the things we wouldn't play on WTOE Internet Family Radio that he has. But one of the routines he did in his early years was baseball versus football. And I think this is one of the funniest things he ever did. It's about 5 minutes long, so don't go away. Stay with us. We'll be back after the video. But Lenny, if the video is ready, could you please ask George to give us a talk about baseball and football?
I'd like to talk a little bit about baseball and football. Starting with baseball. Baseball is different from any other sport in a lot of different little ways. For instance, in most sports, you score points or you score goals. In baseball, you score runs. In most sports, the ball or the object is put in play by the offensive team. In baseball, the defense puts the ball in play, and only the defensive team is allowed to touch the ball. In fact, in baseball, if an offensive player touches the ball intentionally, he's out. Also, most sports, the team is run by a coach. In baseball, the team is run by a manager. And only in baseball does the manager or the coach have to wear the same uniform the players do. Can you picture Bill Parcells in his New York Giants uniform? Now, baseball and football are different from one another in other kind of interesting ways, I think. First of all, baseball is a 19th century pastoral game. Football is a 20th century technological struggle. Baseball is played on a diamond, in a park, the baseball park. Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium, sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium. Baseball begins in the spring, the season of new life. Football begins in the fall when everything is dying. In football, you wear a helmet. In baseball, you wear a cap. Football is concerned with downs. What down is it? Baseball is concerned with ups. Who's up? Are you up? I'm not up. He's up. In football, the specialist comes in to kick. In baseball, the specialist comes in to relieve someone. In football, you receive a penalty. In baseball, you make an error. Whoops.
Whoops.
Football has hitting, clipping, spearing, blocking, piling on, late hitting, unnecessary roughness, and personal fouls. Baseball has the sacrifice. Football is played in any kind of weather. Rain, sleet, snow, hail, mud. Can't read the numbers on the field, can't read the yard markers, can't read the players' numbers. The struggle will continue. In baseball, if it rains, we don't come out to play. I can't come out to play. It's raining out. Baseball has a 7th inning stretch. Football has the 2-minute warning. Baseball has no time limit. We don't know when it's going to end. We might have extra innings. Football is rigidly timed, and it will end even if we have to go to sudden death. In baseball, during the game in the stands, there's kind of a picnic feeling. Emotions may run high or low, but there's not that much unpleasantness. In football, in the stands during the game, you can be sure that at least 27 times you were perfectly capable of taking the life of a fellow human being. Preferably a stranger. And finally, the objectives of the two games are totally different. In football, the object is for the quarterback, otherwise known as the field general, to be on target with his aerial assault, riddling the defense by hitting his receivers with deadly accuracy, in spite of the blitz, even if he has to use the shotgun. With short bullet passes and long bombs, he marches his troops into enemy territory, balancing this aerial assault with a sustained ground attack which punches holes in the forward wall of the enemy's defensive line. In baseball, the object is to go home and to be safe. I hope I'll...
That's where it ended, Jerry.
Wow. I hope to get home. George Carlin is really funny. I remember when he did the hippy-dippy weatherman. He said, well, the weather report is dark tonight, gradually getting lighter till morning. And the even funnier one where he did the AM radio, 5:05, time for the BB News. But, excuse me. And if you're interested in giving us an email or sending us a request for information, you can go to through-our eyes.org/brightside.html. Or you can send me an email at GERALDMORENO1950@gmail.com, which is my name, Gerald Marino, GERALDMORENO 1950@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your answers, your requests. If you feel like sending a donation, you can send it in. We could always use a couple of dollars to take care of our antiquated and being held together with gum and used to say, was it haywire or chicken wire? I don't know. Things go haywire here. But, we're really doing, Lenny does a good juggling act with what computers are working on what day. But, and if you're out there and you want to give us a call, it's 1-888-572-0141. But I did want to talk about that. I did listen to some of the NFB of New Jersey's convention. They had Jim Gashel as a national representative, and the newly appointed director for the Commission for the Blind of New Jersey, Dan Fry, was there. I was able to hear his talk and the talks after that to the noon break. And then I don't know what I did. I probably took a nap. And then I woke up and realized, oh, it's time. I should be listening. And I just got it on when Evelyn Valdez was talking about her job in Washington, D.C. and how she got it. And I listened to the rest of the to that afternoon session. I just did excuse me, and I just didn't get a chance, unfortunately, to get to the banquet. But Lenny, will that banquet time be available on an MP3 file at any time?
Well, it's available on video now, but that'll be for a limited time only. If you go to either our main site, throughoureyes.org, or m.throughoureyes.org, the mobile site, you could listen to the videos. Unfortunately, they're huge files, so we don't have that much room to save it. So they're only going to be up there for a few more days, and then the audio podcast will be available forever. And that will be up probably by midweek of next week.
Thank you. So, and I heard that the whole convention was great, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get there this year, but maybe next year, maybe next year. But how many minutes left we have before the hard break there? 3 minutes. When we come back, we're going to go directly into an extremely funny video from a sitcom from the 60s. So don't miss that. And I know this is strange, but I want to tell you about a book I read. I know Jenny's always saying, Jerry, have you read a book? Have you read a book? And usually the books involve cartoons or a lot of pictures and a few words, but I read a book about Christopher Columbus, if you can imagine. And it was his log, and they had to reconstruct it from a couple of sources. One of them was when he got back to Spain, he presented Ferdinand and Isabella the original copy, or the only copy of the log, to which they had it transcribed and given back to him. Somehow it went from one museum to one person to another. Someone made a copy of it. They didn't do too well. They didn't copy it well. But for the most part, I mean, it's fascinating. And for those of you that use the National Library Service, you can just do a search on the site for Christopher Columbus, for his log, the log of Christopher Columbus. And for those that are sighted that use the standard print library, you just go to the library or online and look for the log of Christopher Columbus. But I mean, it's just interesting what he wrote and how he observed things and the beauty of the country that he found. And of course, all we could do is mess it, right? So, but and then also when we come back, we also want to talk about some of the tech tips that I had alluded to at the beginning, and which are using Blind Square. Some of the new features, I went over a little bit of it, of iOS 7. Some of the things that you could do. I mean, it's just amazing with the new technology. The Bluetooth speaker, I'll tell you about that I got. I mean, just so many things. So remember, we're going to go take a 4-minute break. And when we come back, and we take this break for a reason, because we have to record files, and we just can't do that on the fly. We need the actual time to do it. So we're going to take a 4-minute break. We're going to come back directly into our memory lane, and we're going to hear this video, and we're going to laugh. So for those of you that are listening and not asleep, please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
It inspires imagination, like reading, and it's never too early to start reading to your children. When you open a book, you can explore new worlds like the ones in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Everything you see is Narnia.
Impossible.
You can make new friends, discover amazing adventures, and most of all, have fun.
Are you prepared for what awaits you?
To find out more about the wonders of reading, you can visit the Library of Congress website at www.loc.gov. There, you can learn more about books, play fun games, discover cool facts, and so much more. You can log on to www.loc.gov and let your journey begin. This message has been brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Statistics say that 4 out of 10 high school students will drop out of high school. But sometimes the difference between dropping out and finishing is a boost.
I just try to motivate my friends as much as I can. Just get done with that credit. Just get that thing.
If you don't have anybody while you're in school, then there's not really a way to get through it.
I had a very good friend who was thinking about dropping out completely. And I just talked to him about it, told him that it was a stupid idea for him to do that. You know, he's gone so far and he's only got a year left.
There's one girl named Maria. She just told me to get my things straight. She told me if I ever needed anything that she'll be right there. Even my friends that have dropped out tell me, oh, stay in school. It's not easy to leave it. You think it's the best thing, but then when you've done it, you realize that it wasn't.
10 real-life at-risk students are filming their year, so you can see what it's really like trying to get through high school. Go to boostup.org to see their stories and give someone you know a boost so they can finish. High school is hard. Graduating is harder. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Have you ever lost a cat? And have you ever wanted to get your cat back after you lost it? Hi there, I'm Andrew Hoffman. I went on this website called inventnow.org. Then I decided to make an invention of my own. It's called the Lost Cat Magnet invention. So you can get your cat back after you lost it. Just turn it on, and lost cats stick to it. That's a good cat. If your cat was hiding up in a tree, it won't be up a tree anymore. It will be stuck to the lost cat magnet. And sometimes they fly toward you in the air. Just listen to one satisfied cat. See, that's proof. You should go to the inventnow.org website too. But just remember one thing. Don't do a lost cat magnet.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the National Inventors Hall of Fame Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Judy. And my name is Johnny. We're 10 years old and we're blind. Our dreams are to become scientists.
My name is Catherine. I'm 24 years old and I'm blind. I'm currently in law school, and one day I dream of becoming an attorney.
My name is Bill. I'm 74 years old and I've just become blind. My dream is to remain independent in my own home and not have to go to a nursing home just because I'm blind.
The National Federation of the Blind of New York has been helping blind people achieve their dreams since 1956. Help keep their dream machine running and visit blindnewyorkers.org to make a donation. You can also call them at 718-567-7821. Blind people are your neighbors and colleagues, so learn more about blindness and make your contribution today. Go to blindnewyorkers.org or call 718-567-7821. The National Federation of the Blind of New York. Today's dreams can become tomorrow's realities.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Memory lane. Memory lane. I walk memory lane.
May I have a riddle for you? What has big round shape, carries man and dog, and flies?
Me give up. What has big round shape, carries man and dog, and flies?
May not know either, but there it is.
It is balloon!
No such thing as balloon. That's what you tell old Rock and Aegon. Must be evil spirit.
Well, not just stand there. Sound evil spirit alarm!
Chief, you really believe in evil spirits?
Nah, but what do they know?
Oh, I get a kick out of that every time I hear that. What is round and has a man and a dog in it? It is Baloo. That is funny. I get a kick out of when the sergeant and Corporal Agarn would say, "Well, do it for the old man, sir." And he goes, "Well, who's the old man?" "Well, you're the old man." Or he would stick his sword, Ken Berry, Captain Parmenter would stick his sword in the in the drawer or in the floor, and he'd trip. And poor Dobbs would help him up and trip. I mean, it's just funny. I mean, it's just hilarious. So some of the things that you could see on the old television, like classic TV, and you can go to YouTube, youtube.com. I think everybody knows that, and you could access these. Just put in, like what I did is I just put F Troop, two words, F space Troop, the plus sign, and I put balloon, and I hit enter, and it came up with one of the first entries. It came up with the balloon episode. Now, for blind and visually impaired folk, easy for you to say, for blind folk out there, there's something called YourTube, which is yourtube.com. And it's a lot easier to put something in, and it comes up with clear and crisp answers. And when you hit let's say you put in what I just said, F Troop plus balloon, and you hit the enter, comes up with 10 results. And then you could always go to next and 10 more if they're there. And it'll play, but it'll just play the audio. You have like an audio player, play, stop, pause, mute. And it says if this is not working, there's a link to click on so you could watch it on YouTube. So a lot of times when I'm looking for something, no matter what I'm looking for on YouTube, sometimes I go to the YourTube, put it in, and hit the play on YouTube, and then I can capture that URL or copy that URL. That's how we got the clip from the F Troop, and that's how we got the clip from George Carlin. Boy, his name just slipped out of my head. I remember that one routine he would do, drugs. They advertised them right outside, RX, drugs. But one of the things that...
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
That's exactly my sentiments, My sentiments include... I resemble that remark. And over here in Charlotte, we have the Christopher Columbus Italian Club, and we have a cultural event at each meeting. And I'm doing the meeting, this cultural event this Sunday, and I'm doing clips of music. And maybe we should do that one day, playing like 20 seconds, 10 seconds of an Italian song or an Italian artist, and people have to identify it. So I got a trivial question out there for all of you. Who sang? Well, his real name was something, but his real name was Francesco Paolo Lovecchi or Lovecchio. I don't remember exactly, but if you could get back to me with the information I gave you before, I'll acknowledge you on air next time. Francesco Paolo Lovecchi or Lovecchio. I can't remember exactly, but it's really interesting, some of the things you could find on YouTube. I love to get some of the now. By the way, I don't know if people out there remember, but years ago they only limited it to like to 9 minutes or 10 minutes. Now there's 20, 30 minutes. I don't know what the maximum is. I think I've seen an hour. I'm not sure, but
yeah, there's full 1 hour programs on YouTube.
Yeah, and isn't that great? And you could listen to things like we were watching. Now I don't know if it'll work on a computer or on a mobile device. I know on our web-enabled TV, we were watching full episodes of All in the Family, and some of those things, I mean, you got to watch them. I don't know if they would be able to air those things today that you hear on All in the Family. But it's just funny. And the funny thing is, I see Archie, and I say, that's my father-in-law. That's my father. And I'm thinking, wow, like, listen to what he's saying. And some of them are funny. Especially the one where he he backed up and hit a car, and he claimed that he was driving and the car hit him. And he didn't know that there was witnesses. It was a station wagon filled with nuns. And when he was looking for a lawyer, he was saying, I want a good lawyer. And he picked Rabinowitz, and Rabinowitz. He says, I need a good lawyer. And at the end, Mr. Rabinowitz is talking to the other lawyer, and the other lawyer says, can it be a station wagon full of nuns? And the other lawyer Mr. Rabinowitz zipped it up, and he just left. And he goes, you can get him. Archie says, you can get him. And he says, in the world of law, nothing beats a station wagon filled with nuns. And I mean, it's just funny the way Archie talked about it. Yeah, well, they all travel around in a tribe or whatever, And many days I got that by the nun. But anyway, so think about something to search on YouTube and go and look for it. But before the break, we talked about Christopher Columbus and his log. And, I always thought that he said he went from Genoa to Ferdinand Isabella, said, give me some money. She hocked her jewels, sent them across. He did what he had to do, and he came back. But it wasn't as simple as that, because it turns out I don't know whether I didn't read it or I didn't pay attention. Most likely I didn't pay attention. But the Santa Maria was shipwrecked on one of the islands, and they took it apart, and they used it for pieces of wood and metal and stuff. And then the guy who was piloting the Nita, he just took off and went his own direction. So all he had there was the Pinta, and that was the only ship he had. And the people he found there, he was describing, and it was so funny. Naked as the day they were born. And it's just funny the way that he was he was talking about how the different plants and how it looked and what they were doing, and how he would trade them trinkets for little pieces of gold and food and water, and how friendly they were, except for the ones that were called the Caribs, because the natives, the lore there, the tradition was that the Caribs were cannibals and they eat people. Now, he didn't know if that was true, and he never saw any evidence of that in the logs that I remember reading. But it just scared the residents there of the islands. But it was really, really, really good to hear. And every time he would land on an island, he'd put a cross on there, and he would pray, and he would thank God for getting him back and forth from one spot to the other, and thanking him for the provisions, because they could have gotten lost and or capsized. There was really bad storms. And one of the things that as we come across to the end of November, December, we get to Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, and a lot of times we turn our attention to things where we want to be a little thankful, or maybe a lot thankful, really, I should say. And we want to look and see, well, what could I be thankful for? A lot of people say that. And the answer is, if you look hard enough, you could be thankful for the breath you're breathing. Because if you weren't breathing, you'd be dead. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I think I could figure that one out myself. And, it beats the alternative, not breathing, to breathe. So what we do now is we turn our attention to Thanksgiving. I'll be traveling up north. I think I'm going to starve myself on that Wednesday so I could eat more on that Thursday. I don't have to starve myself. I'll just eat anyway. But most of the time, Christmas and Hanukkah sort of fall around the same time. But Hanukkah comes a little early this year. So we want to pay tribute to Hanukkah. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play a not so solemn video. As a matter of fact, it's a funny song by Adam Sandler, and it's called the Hanukkah Song. So Lenny, if you're ready, I am.
All right, everybody, we're gonna sing a song right now that you might know the words to. So if you want to sing along, that would be fun. Here we go. Hanukkah is the festival of lights. Instead of one day of presents, we get 8 crazy nights. But when you feel like the only kid in town without a Christmas tree, here's a list of people who are Jewish, just like you and me. David Lee Roth, Lightstone Menorah, so do James Caan, Kirk Douglas, and the Weasel Pauly Shore. Guess who is together at the Carnegie Deli? Bowser from Shanana and Arthur Fontarelli. Paul Newman's half Jewish, Goldie Hawn's half Jew. Put them together, what a fine-looking show! Junto de Rosa, Shingle Baraka, Casio spit a dreidel with Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. Bob Hewitt! Put on that yarmulke, it's time for Hanukkah. The owner of the Seattle Supersonicers, whoops, celebrates Hanukkah. O.J. Simpson, not a Jew, but guess who is Hall of Famer Rod Carew? He converted. We got Ann Landers and her sister, dear Abby. Harrison Ford is a quarter Jewish, not too shabby. Some people think that Ebenezer Scrooge is Willie's not. But guess who is? Humphrey Sturgis! So many Jews are in the shop business. Tom Cruise isn't, but I heard
Happy Hanukkah. You have to say that the right way, Hanukkah. And you're not saying it right if the person in front of you doesn't get that schmaltz in front of you. But for next month's show, which will air on December the 11th, the second Wednesday of the month, we would like, that's Janie and I. Hi, Janie. Hi, Jerry. We would like you to either mail in or maybe call in or tie a note on a rock and throw it in, and about your favorite holiday remembrances, your Hanukkah, Christmas, or however way you celebrate the holidays. If you're Druid and you have a bush or something like that, and you worship whatever. I'm being a little silly, but you know what I mean. We really want to hear from you, because the title of this show, it's On the Bright Side. Yes, On the Bright Side with Janie and Jerry, and we want to look on the bright side. And I almost said something else. We want to look on the bright side, and we get uplifted when we hear about holiday experiences. I mean, I remember some of the experiences I had running and looking under the tree and finding, you ready for this? One present. Now they have to have two rooms. So they have the tree in one room and the secondary tree in the other room, and it's the gifts are numbered 1 to 10 and then 11 to 20 and all of that. And but it was a little simpler time. I mean, got a lot of underwear and remember these spruce boxes and things like that. But please, and if you have a favorite recipe of some sort of holiday delight, holiday delight, yes, delight the tree, I don't know, anything you like, an eggnog recipe, I mean, that would be good. I don't know if did you ever, by the way, know what's really in a wassail bowl? I don't know if you really want to know, but so please give us a call, write in to the email I gave you. You can always check it out at throughoureyes.org, right? .org. And remember, we have other shows too on WTOE. Next week we'll have Joe Ruffalo on Through Our Eyes with Joe Ruffalo. Week after that, Looking Good. I love to say it that way. And on the first Wednesday, we have Cheryl Echeverry in a travel show. But please write in, tell us, whatever. And remember, if you have a loose dollar out there and you like to send it, we're most happy to receive it. And if you want to advertise with us, just contact Lenny, our webmaster. He'll be more than happy to share with you on ways that you can support WTOE. And there's a lot of ways you can do it. And we really could use your support. Well, I really miss Janie. Janie, are you there? Hello, Jerry. I wish I was a ventriloquist so I could hear. Hello.
I can't talk that loud.
But I think I hear her talking. But we're really looking forward to a warmer climate here. The snow, North Carolina. That's why I moved here. But I'm also looking forward to coming up Thanksgiving. We decided not to drive on the Wednesday because I heard that the Wednesday is one of the heaviest travel days. So we're going Tuesday, which is probably the second heaviest travel day in the United States. But we really want to get back to what it means to be on the bright side, and that's to really look up and to look at our circumstances and say, our circumstances don't dictate how we feel. We dictate how we feel. Our circumstances drag us down, but we can lift ourselves up. How do you do that? Read inspirational books. Read the sacred scriptures. Talk to people. Talk to people who are looking up and looking on the bright side. Don't hang yourself, or hang yourself. That's not a very nice thing to say. You shouldn't hang yourself. I know that. Don't hang around people who are going to drag you down, but hang around people who are going to lift you up. It's very easy to be down. You could sleep in slumber and be down. It takes a little effort to get out of bed. You know, go take that shower or bath. Please, my wife said, take the shower or bath and get out and just look around and be thankful for what you have around you. You know, I read these stories about people and my heart goes out to them. What ailments they have, they're missing this, they're paralyzed, and yet you hear such good reports about them. And then, you know, I know people who are, I mean, you look at them and you think there's nothing wrong with them, and you wonder why they're so down. They're not looking on the bright side. And we always look on the bright side here. No matter what happens with our computer, with the Skype not working, with the, like today, I was ready to take the computer and throw it against the wall. But then I realized that wouldn't help anything. It would break my wall and break my computer. But I just forged through and figured out what was happening, and here we are. And, you know, got a pretty good show talking to myself. Right, Lenny?
Right.
And just getting back to the holidays, because the holidays sometimes can bring people down. If for any chance, any of you out there are down and want someone to talk to or to listen to, give us a call.
Jerry, I have a little surprise for you real quick. You only got 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
But since you're so lonely, maybe you could just listen to this. This was at the convention.
Join me, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Okay, I thought you'd like to hear her voice.
Yes, and thank you, Lenny, for reminding me to thank all of those out there, all of you men and women who are serving or have served our country in the past. And I'm thinking about my friend Tony, my cousin Frankie, and a lot of people out there. Everybody knows Joe Ruffalo. You know, he served our country, and just like to be thankful for that we are free and we could walk around and free to listen to this type of show. But
1 minute to go. 1 minute end.
If any of you out there contact us, you have the information. Contact us if you feel at all anyway depressed, down, whatever. We will certainly get back to you and lift you up. Now, remember, our next show, WTOE next week at 8 o'clock, Through Our Eyes with Joe Ruffalo. And then in December, on December the 11th, we're going to have a great, fun-filled Christmas holiday. That special visitor from the cold North Pole is gonna come and visit us. Maybe he'll bring me a present. I'm always looking for some presents, you know. Ooh, but I don't know. He said something about coal for me. Of course, people don't know what coal is today, do they? But anyway, we're about to end our show. Thank you for hanging in. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for sponsoring us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for listening. And remember, we are proud to be an American. Thank you, and see you next month on the 11th. Bye-bye.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life.
All words, ideas, and content expressed on The Bright Side are solely those of Jane Degenshine and Jerry Marino,
and not necessarily those of the National Federation of the Blind, the Northeast New Jersey chapter, or WTOE Internet Radio Network.
If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, down with silly chumps, just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. Hey, always look on the bright side of life. Come on guys, cheer up. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
Hi, this is Joe Ruffalo of WTOE Radio. If you are a resident in New Jersey and would like to join one of our chapters or have some more information about our chapters, please contact me at 973-743-0075 or email me at nfbnj@yahoo.com.
Advertise your events on internet radio and podcasts free. Need to advertise your club or organization's next event? Whether it's one announcement or different ones weekly or monthly, now you can. ThroughOurEyes.org, using our WTOE radio live broadcast and our podcast, give you the ears of the world. You can take advantage of our free offer in one of two ways: recording your announcement on your computer or calling our toll-free telephone number. Visit our website to learn more.
Are you stuck in front of your computer listening to our shows? Well, you may be happy to know that you don't have to be anymore. Hi, this is Keith Zally, your announcer here at WTOE Radio. Of course, you know we broadcast live on throughoureeyes.org, but did you know we simulcast on Facebook, Ustream.tv, as well as all of our show's host websites? And now you don't have to be stuck trying to catch your favorite show on your computer. You can listen or even watch our shows live right on your smartphone or iPad. During broadcast nights, just point your phone or iPad browser to our mobile site, m.throughoureeyes.org, and click on the Listen or Watch Live link. WTOE also offers many smart apps for your iPhone, BlackBerry, Android, Windows Mobile, or Nokia phones, iPads too, all for free. Visit our main site, www.throughoureeyes.org/appstores.html, and download your free app today.
Hi, I'm Keith Zally, your announcer here at throughoureeyes.org. Thanks for tuning in to WTOE Radio's live broadcast. Our recording session will start shortly. While you are waiting, I'd like to ask all our listeners who have not yet registered at Through Our Eyes to consider doing so. Registering helps us ascertain whom our listeners are, where they come from, if they are blind or visually impaired, as well as other important information which helps us guide us in providing programming that will meet our visitors' needs. I urge all our listeners to register today. It's free and only takes a minute to complete the process. Please read our privacy policy so you can be assured that the information you provide stays with us and only us, and you'll never get any unwanted emails. Well, we're almost ready to begin. Since what you are about to listen to is live, after each recording of the show, you'll hear approximately 15 minutes of music. This is the time we are contacting our next guest for the next show. When the show starts, you'll hear it in its entirety. Our recording sessions usually comprise 3 separate shows, each about 15 to 20 minutes in length, with approximately 15 minutes between each session. So once again, thanks for listening to WTOE Radio Live. Our recording session will start momentarily. I'm Keith Zally.
hour, join Steve and his guests as they talk about topics geared to educate and inform his audience. Listen as Steve brings his unique experiences as an author, business leader, teacher, and law enforcement professional to the conversation. Together with outstanding guests, Steve asks the questions that make a difference in his listeners' lives. You're guaranteed to be better off after you listen to the Kovacs Perspective than before his show started. So, sit back, relax, and see what his show can do for you.
Hey everybody, Steve Kovacs here, and welcome to the Kovacs Perspective. Tonight's program has two mysterious topics. I mean, bone right to the walls, totally mysterious things that most human beings on the face of this planet, especially in America, really don't have much clue to. And the first one is about mega American author John Steinbeck. You know, if you went to high school, you graduated hopefully from high school if you went, you probably had to read something John Steinbeck wrote. He was infamous or famous for writing books that we in school had to read, mandatory reading. So we just know him as being this outstanding, up on a perch author. And that's still solidified, I believe, in American literature. But there's a mystery out there about him. Was he a CIA spy? Was he a spy? Was he really something a little bit different than we all think that he was? Well, our first guest is going to talk to us about that, and he may open your eyes, and I think he very well may open mine too. And then right after that, another mystery, one that intrigues me and has intrigued me for many years. It's all about the famous navigator, one of the first females that were out and about, out in the forefront of navigation in aeronautics, a pilot, Amelia Earhart. Who has not heard of her? And who hasn't heard that she died mysteriously? She was on a record-breaking attempt many years ago, in which we're going to get into the exact time and all that. She was on this record-breaking attempt over the ocean, and she disappeared. Everybody assumed she ran out of gas or had some kind of mechanical problem and crashed into the ocean, and she's there now, and no one really knows where. However, our second guest has something a little bit different to talk about. And he says he has evidence that will shock most of us, I think. A whole nother paradigm about what happened to the famous Amelia Earhart pilot. I'm looking forward to that because, you know what, that's intrigued me for years. It's intrigued a lot of people. And our guest has something totally different than I've heard, and that I bet you've heard. So I'll tell you, maybe today's the day we're going to find out all kinds of stuff. Our brain's going to expand. We're going to learn more than we thought we would today, and maybe laugh a little bit along the way also. So stick around, because we'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
We'll be right back with Steve and his guests right after these few messages.
Hold it. You're not going outside without a jacket.
The odds of a child getting hypothermia, 1 in 66,000. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 150. Here are some of the signs. No big smiles or other joyful expressions by 6 months, no back and forth sharing of sounds or facial expressions by 9 months, and no babbling by 12 months. To learn more of the signs, visit autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
It slices, it dices, with razor-like edges that never need sharpening. It's not a blender. It's not a set of steak knives. It's car windshield. And now it can be yours. Here's how. Next time you're in a car and the driver's driving recklessly, simply say nothing. That's right. Let them change CDs. Let them text on their phones. Ignore that little voice in your head that's trying to warn you. And you too can experience car windshield. Passengers who have tried car windshield agree. It's a smash. Car windshield may not be for everyone, as it can lead to severe side effects and even death. Please consult your physician after you've experienced car windshield. Passengers who wish to avoid car windshield can do so by following simple steps, like trusting their instincts, speaking up, and telling their friends to slow down.
In the real world, there is no spokesperson to prevent reckless driving. There's only you. Speak up.
Act now. Paramedics are standing by.
This has been a message from the Ad Council. For more information, go to youarethespokesperson.com.
This isn't silence. It's nothing. Every year, 1 million families lose their homes to foreclosure because they do nothing. If you've fallen behind on your mortgage, do something. Call 1-888-995-HOPE. That's 1-888-995-4673. Because nothing is worse than doing nothing. A public service announcement brought to you by NeighborWorks, the ad counselor in this station.
And now back to the Kovacs Perspective.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me, Steve Kovacs, your host at the KovacsPerspective.com. You can get a hold of us at that address. We are going to talk about a mystery, and we're going to be talking about somebody that you may dislike or actually just maybe you like very much. He's a great author, American author, by the name of John Steinbeck. As I said in the preliminary before we went to a commercial break, that you very well may be one of those people that had to read us John Steinbeck novel because he was just such a great author. But now we hear that he might have been a CIA spy too, and something to do with the FBI, or maybe the FBI didn't like him, the CIA liked him. But we're going to find out all about that. Please join me when I introduce Brian Kannard. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me on.
Brian, you're welcome. Brian, you have a unique story, and one that is, if anyone looks, ladies and gentlemen, into this great author, John Steinbeck, you'll find that there is some rumbling about that he might have been a spy or had something to do with the CIA. But Brian, your book, Citizen Spy, Steinbeck, Citizen Spy, you have some evidence pretty much saying that he definitely was. Am I wrong on that, or am I correct?
You are correct. I started looking back into Steinbeck's life about 7 or 8 years ago, and I knew about as much about John Steinbeck as your average, high school and college student does. And through a series of events, I got reintroduced to Steinbeck, and in 2008 was able to talk to his son some about Steinbeck's love of Arthurian lore and legend. And that led me to looking a little deeper into John's life and some of the things that he did during World War II, and re-examining John's FBI file. And anybody can go and look at Steinbeck's FBI file at the FBI's Vault website. It contains a number of FBI files for entertainers, authors, politicians, and his 120-page FBI file I'd looked at half a dozen times over the last few years that I'd been investigating Steinbeck. And I decided to look at it one last time with an emphasis on who was writing the reports and who was requesting information about Steinbeck. I can't believe I'd never seen this before, but 3 little letters kept popping up in Steinbeck's FBI file, CIA. And the CIA had redacted 2 pages of information out of Steinbeck's 120-page file, along with at least 20 other redactions, specifically by the CIA or for national security reasons. So I looked into other people at the time that were other authors or actors from the 40s to 70s and couldn't really find anything in their FBI files that the CIA would be interested in hiding. Even Albert Einstein's file, which is 1,500 pages, has 1 page redacted by the Central Intelligence Agency and 1 very, very short sentence. So I'd come to a wall in trying to figure out why the CIA was interested in Steinbeck. I thought that it might be because of his alleged ties to the Communist Party. And that's how most people perceive Steinbeck as the great liberal and communist sympathizer that wrote The Grapes of Wrath. So at the beginning of last year, I contacted the CIA through a Freedom of Information Act request. And 6 or 7 months later, I got back 2 very interesting letters that the CIA had cleared for public consumption. And one of them was a letter dated January 28th, 1952, from John Steinbeck in his own hand, requesting that he make himself available to the CIA during an upcoming trip he is taking in Europe later on that year. And the second letter that was in that packet was a letter from Walter Beadle Smith, who was the director of Central Intelligence at the time, accepting Steinbeck's offer.
Well, and that's a little bit of investigation I did, Brian. That's what I came up with, but not a bit of what you're saying. So let me go a little bit further here. It appears that John Steinbeck, the author of Grapes of Wrath and what was it, Mice and Men, Brian? The other book?
Yes, Mice and Men, East of Eden.
These knockout texts, but he was considered, and I'm going to drift off a little bit. He was considered a liberal, wasn't he? Pretty far left liberal back in those days.
He was. He worked on a number of political campaigns during the period. Was huge friends with Lyndon Baines Johnson and did some speech writing for him. But we also have to remember at the time, being a liberal does not necessarily equate to being a communist. And he had ties with people that were in the Communist Party or were blacklisted. Burgess Meredith, for example, was a very, very good friend of Steinbeck's, who got blacklisted by a publication called Red Channels. Lillian Hellman, Burl Ives was another friend of Steinbeck's that was blacklisted. And that stigma has always been attached to him. But that doesn't necessarily preclude the fact that Steinbeck was a patriot as well and perceived Soviet-style communism as a worldwide threat.
Well, you couldn't have worded it better. You answered my question times 10. You answered that query in my mind that many people wondered about. I believe, Brian, that wait a minute, this guy was a CIA spy, but he was communist. But you just explained that quite well. Now, isn't it true that Steinbeck wrote a letter to the CIA? Right? He wrote a letter saying, "Hey guys, I'm going to Europe. I might be able to help you if you want me on board to kind of help the cause, the American cause. I'm ready to rock and roll, so to speak." He did do that, did he not?
Yes, he did. And quoting from that letter, one quick sentence, Steinbeck's talking about going to Europe to write some articles for Collier's magazine. He was going to be in Europe in 1952 for he was planning on somewhere between 6 to 8 months. And he says in the letter, "If during this period I can be of any service whatsoever to yourself or to the agency you direct, I shall only be too glad." And he says later, again, "I shall be pleased to be of service. The pace and method of my junket, together with my intentions of talking with great numbers of people of all classes, may offer peculiar advantages." And once again, this is in Steinbeck's hand. And this is not the first time that Steinbeck has had brushes with the intelligence community. Steinbeck worked for the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, which was a precursor to the CIA during the Second World War. He also worked for the Foreign Information Service and was an advisor to a certain extent to FDR. So it's not too far a stretch to see Steinbeck going from those roles during the Second World War into covert service with the agency.
Well, if you look at it that way, Brian, it's not a far step at all. But before, I think many people figured John Steinbeck was so liberal, and you worded it quite well. Just because someone's a liberal doesn't make them communist, or doesn't make them definitely at that time Soviet communist. But okay, so what we're gathering, what I'm gathering right now, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because my job is to create a picture for the people listening. And I'm pretty simple-minded, so people can follow what I usually put together. And I'm working on that now. So we know that he was a patriot. He worked for the precursor of the CIA, and he definitely wrote a letter to the CIA. Hey guys, I'm ready to help you. And he received a response from the head of CIA saying, what? What did that letter say? His response.
Well, Beadle Smith's letter, Beadle Smith was Eisenhower's second in command in World War II. He was also the ambassador to the Soviet Union between World War II and when he took up the post of Director of Central Intelligence. He says, and I quote, "You can indeed be of help to us by keeping your eyes and ears open of any political developments in areas through which you travel. In addition, on any other matters which you seem of significance, particularly those which might be overlooked in routine reports." Now, how does Steinbeck know what a routine CIA report is the big question here, unless he had a prior involvement with the Central Intelligence Agency before this 1952 letter.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. How would he know what that's all about? So, Brian, let's cut to the chase because we don't have that much time, and there's a lot I want to ask you yet. Do we know if he did anything? Do we know if he, put the James Bond, hopped in a James Bond car kind of thing, and, the shades and sunglasses? I mean, do we know if he did anything for the CIA?
Circumstantially, we do. Unfortunately, the CIA is not coming off any other documents, and their line is they can neither confirm nor deny any person being in an operational capacity for the agency. However, there is a ton of circumstantial evidence and documentation that tells us, yes, he was a CIA asset. For example, in his FBI file, the CIA requested in 1957 all the information that the FBI has on Steinbeck, and that was done by the CIA's Office of Security. Well, the Office of Security did in 1957 pretty much what it does today. They're responsible for securing CIA facilities, CIA personnel, and vetting people for either higher clearances or for other operational means. So there's no reason in the world why the CIA's Office of Security would have looked into Steinbeck. If they thought that he was a traitor, it would have been the Office of Counterintelligence that would have looked into Steinbeck. But the Office of Security looking into him denotes that John was considered at least an asset. There are also some clues within the letter from Beadle Smith. There's enclosures in the letter, and one of them is a copy should be sent to the administrative offices of the CIA. And in the copy that I've got, and that's also available in the CIA's Freedom of Information Act electronic reading room, anybody can go see that, or it's at the book's website. That admin has been crossed out, and I actually was able to talk to a former intelligence officer who was an agent during the period, and I asked him about that, and he said, well, in special cases where the agency didn't want, your normal records clerk to see an asset's file, they would not send that to the normal administration offices. And they would keep those files either in the Director of Central Intelligence's office or in the Deputy Director of Plans who dealt with covert operations. So that one little line through that one copy sent to admin means that Steinbeck was a special case, and the CIA was not only interested but serious about pursuing him as an asset.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Brian Kannard. You can visit him at SteinbeckCitizenSpy.com. He is the author of Steinbeck, Citizen Spy. And we're talking about the prolific, fantastic writer, John Steinbeck. It appears that he was a CIA spy, or I'll call it an asset. Brian, why does it matter if he was or wasn't?
Well, it matters because Steinbeck is a cultural icon. It also matters because Steinbeck was a patriot. And during World War II, he wanted to serve in uniform, but through a number of circumstances, he was denied a commission or even enlisting in the United States Army. And I believe that John reached out to the intelligence community as his one way to contribute to the Cold War. So not only is John Steinbeck one of our greatest authors, he's also one of our greatest heroes too. And I think that his memory deserves the entire story being told. And it also plays into what you mentioned in the introduction. Every high school student in America reads either The Grapes of Wrath of Mice and Men, at very least Chrysanthemums, which was a short story of his. And this is a hole in Steinbeck's life that people simply need to be aware of and what that influence might have been on his writings.
Well, and well put. Here's a guy that we look up to, and I did a little research before we went on air. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the guy even looks like he's like cool, you know. He's strong. He looks like he exudes character. What a great writer. I mean, some of the things he wrote, and I've seen movies of his writing, that's just stunning. So Brian, I agree that let's get a real picture of this guy that's formed so many of us and has produced awe for so many of us. Brian, what is Operation Mockingbird? Tell me a little bit about that, and tell me if Steinbeck might have been a part of that.
Operation Mockingbird was a development of the Deputy Director of Plan, Frank Wisner, in the early days of the CIA. The CIA came into being in October of 1947. And the CIA was really underfunded at that time. They were tasked with gathering intelligence around the globe and really had no mechanism to do it. They're really kind of inventing the wheel of espionage at this point, coming straight out of World War II. And we also have the Iron Curtain descending, so there's a lot of threats out there. And one of the ways that the CIA decided that they would gather intelligence was to use journalists. And Carl Bernstein of All the King's Men and Watergate fame, in 1977 broke an article in Rolling Stone called The CIA in the Media. And he describes through his sources that at least 400 journalists during the Cold War were utilized as assets by the CIA. Now, this could be anything from, hey, you're going to Yugoslavia next week, keep your eyes and ears open for this. Or if you see this type of boxcar on a railway, count them. Let us know how many there are. To, can you get this message to this certain person? And it makes sense because journalists are naturally inquisitive people. And they have access to places that normal people don't. So journalists make a perfect cover for an intelligence asset. Now, the rub of this is, and the question that we don't have an answer to, is how far did these journalists go? Did the CIA influence what these journalists wrote about? Did the CIA plant stories for their own operational purposes? And I believe, looking at some of Steinbeck's writing after this 1952 trip, he was also a very prolific journalist. And a number of the news agencies that Bernstein mentions in his 77 article, the Louisville Courier-Journal, the New York Herald Tribune, and a few others, Steinbeck did freelance work for. So we have means, motive, and opportunity for Steinbeck to be working for these news agencies that are cozy with the CIA. And a number of articles you wrote for Collier's magazine in this 1952 trip are outright propaganda. And one of which, called The Soul and Guts of France, is about the most un-Steinbeck thing that I can think of he ever wrote. It's about visiting the wine country in southeast France and talking about the deplorable conditions that are there and how the people are wearing pants made of parachutes from World War II, and there's no indoor plumbing, and he actually calls them peasants. And
this was in what country?
This is in France in 1952. And it's written from a perspective, if you'd read The Soul and Guts of France and then read The Grapes of Wrath, you would have never thought it was written by the same person. It's kind of from the perspective.
So Brian, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, because that's real interesting. So what do you think? I mean, you're an expert in him now. I'm sure when you wrote this book, I mean, you stuck your head in research for ages and ages. So you're an expert. Tell me what you think. Was it propaganda? I mean, you're the expert. Tell me your learned opinion. What were they planted, or did he change his whole style, his whole mindset?
I don't think he changed his entire mindset. I think it was propaganda. Steinbeck wrote propaganda in World War II for the United States government, saying that less than 10 years later, he somehow wouldn't write propaganda during the Cold War is an asinine thought. Steinbeck knew what a threat communism was and would do anything, including write out propaganda to combat that threat. I even spoke with his son, Thomas Steinbeck, on a number of occasions. And while Tom can't confirm or deny the fact that John was a CIA spy, I mean, we can't right now with the information that we have, other than the strong case that we have with the letters and the circumstantial case. But Tom can see that as well. And if a man's son believes that he could write outright propaganda for the United States government during the Cold War, that's good enough for me. But,
ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Brian Kannard, the author of Steinbeck, Citizen Spy, www.steinbeckcitizenspy.com. If you have a daughter or a son getting ready to go to high school, and I'm not here to plug Brian's book at all, I'm just not, but it might be a little a stocking stuffer to let somebody read about, quote unquote, the real Steinbeck. Nothing bad here. They're the full Steinbeck. The author of things that they're going to be told that they have to read. Might just bring a whole new and more intelligent perspective for your daughter or son or somebody who's into this kind of thing or is going to be forced into it a little bit in school. Brian, I've got to talk to you about something. You said something that when you said it to me, and I'm a observer of the media, the hair on the back of my neck almost went up. I wish the hair on my bald spot that you can't see would have gone up, but I have nothing there. But you really got me going here. And I'll tell you what you said, that how many journalists were asked by our government to keep an eye out for them? Say it again.
At least 400 that Bernstein sources told him. We don't have an exact number because the CIA, of course, doesn't release operational details, and for very good reason. The lives of agents in the field depend on their anonymity and people not knowing exactly who's in play and who's not. But Bernstein, of course, is a very credible source.
Sure.
And the number 400 keeps being bandied about.
Brian, let me stop you because we only got a minute left. That to me is phenomenal. Your opinion, because that's all we can get, and this is a little bit off the topic of getting a whole picture of the author Steinbeck. But do you think if the CIA came up to 400 journalists now, would the journalists still help America, or would they kind of say no way? What's your opinion?
I think so. There was a case very, very recently with a New York Times reporter who he was asked by the CIA to report on an article about bin Laden before it was published. And he sent information back. Gentleman's name was Marzetti, I believe. And that came to the public light, and the New York Times had to apologize for it. So there is still a relationship between the media and the CIA today. The difference is the CIA technically can't recruit a journalist, but a journalist can volunteer for work with the CIA, and they often do.
Brian, very interesting. Not only the about John Steinbeck, the complete picture, what's really behind the what we know, the glitz, what everybody knew before, but also about the journalism. I think it's a great subject matter. You hit on a great topic, and I hope your book does well, because I think you're bringing out something out of the box. That seems really cool. Brian, let me thank you for being a guest. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a hard break or a long break, a little bit longer. Don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to talk about flying and oceans and mystery and a woman that was just something really special in her day. Let's find out what really happened to her, so stick around.
Hey everybody, this is Keith Zally from the WTOE Radio Network, and right now we're going to take a few extra minute break just so we can save our files for our podcast. So please don't go anywhere, because there's going to be more Steve and the Kovacs Perspective in just a few minutes.
Thank you, and we're back. You know, when it comes to fighting crime, he's never going to roll over. He's McGruff the crime dog.
Roll over. You're okay, Joy.
Thanks.
And I got 2 words to make your neighborhood safer.
Uh-huh.
Coffee cake.
Ah, the old poison coffee cake trick. The cook takes a bite, falls down to the ground.
No, it's for your neighbors.
You want to poison your neighbors?
No, never.
Oh, thank goodness.
No, for 25 years, I've been giving tips about preventing crime. One of them is to invite people over for a cup of coffee and share the problems you see on your street and what to do about them.
That's great.
You can invite your local police officer to help, too.
You know, I hear they're very fond of donuts.
Oh, that's just a myth.
Oh, well, I'd come to your doghouse for coffee cake in a safer neighborhood.
Now you're talking. You can cut down on crime by not just locking your door, but opening up to your neighbors.
Still, a 10-pound bundt cake dropped on a bad guy's foot could help.
It couldn't hurt. And going to weprevent.org for other tips could help, too.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, Crime Prevention Coalition of America, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
At the holiday party, Chris shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He tells his boss the one about the salesman and the talking bar stool. Laughing, he excuses himself to hit the head. He decides a plant will do just fine. Chris misses the plant. Finished, he raids the company fridge and eats 27 deviled eggs while drinking the special punch nicknamed Rocket Fuel. He makes out with Kathy from accounting. He decides to make a funny holiday card. Sitting on the copying machine, Chris laughs hysterically. He writes, "Happy Holidays from Stinky the Elf." He then yells, "Office parties are for losers."
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
And now a weather update. Winds out of the south-southeast at 9 miles an hour.
Citizens of America, this is a message from feedthepig.org. Do not be alarmed. We are here to help you save yourself. According to public records, Americans spent more money than they earned in 2005. This is the first negative savings rate in the U.S. since the Great Depression. America, we must change our behavior. We need to stop spending every dime we earn and start feeding the pig. We must start putting away a piece of our paycheck. On the 1st and the 15th, we must pay ourselves before we pay anyone or anything. We must make a budget, and yes, even consider cutting up a credit card. And we must tell a friend to do the same. America, to start moving in the right direction, we must start a movement. Join us at feedthepig.org. Find the benefits of saving for every stage of life. Log on to feedthepig.org today.
And for more traffic updates, brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Mrs. Johnson. Is Megan there?
Sure. Follow me. The kids are in the kitchen making sandwiches.
Hey, Julie. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Megan. Hey, Megan.
Yeah?
You're a total freak. God, you're ugly. And dumb. Oh, and your makeup makes you look like a tramp. Oh my God. Tommy Morris told me you guys made out. Everybody knows. The whole school knows. He said your breath smelled like garbage, and he almost puked. He says you're the most desperate girl he knows. And that dress is totally hideous. You look like a big fat clown. Disgusting. Oh, and by the way, nice zit.
If you wouldn't say it in person, why say it online? Delete cyberbullying. Don't write it, don't forward it. For more information, visit ncpc.org. A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, Crime Prevention Coalition of America, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
And now back to the Kovacs Perspective.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Kovacs. You're listening to the Kovacs Perspective. We have a great topic that we're going to be starting off in about 10 seconds. And I got to talk a little bit about it because this has intrigued me personally for years and years. And I may be one of them saps and suckers because I think our author, our expert, is going to change my idea on what I believe happened, and I want to hear the truth. But this has just caught my attention. It's intrigued me because here's an attractive female in the 30s, I believe, is 1935, 37 is what we're going to be talking about, I believe. A pioneer aviator that disappears. And it's just an intriguing thing. And I call it a mystery, and it may very well not be. But that's where we're at, and that's where we're going to go. Let me introduce Mike Campbell. He is the author, I believe, of his second Amelia Earhart book. But this book is called Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last. And you can hop on the internet and check it out, earharttruth.com. You can kind of follow along with us. Please join me in welcoming our second guest, Mike Campbell. How are you, Mike?
Hi, Steve. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for your interest.
You know, you're welcome, and thank you very much for being here because, you know, ladies and gentlemen, most people don't know how it works, but in the radio and TV world, lots of people have a ton of questions ready to rock and roll, and I do too, but it's one of these topics we're going to be talking about that it's going to roll off my big fat mouth because it's so interesting. Tell me a little bit, Mike, before we go further, on who Amelia Earhart was and why we should.
We don't really have a lot of time to get to the bottom, get to the meat of this matter. But as you said before, Amelia Earhart was known as the First Lady of Flight. She was called America's First Lady of Flight after she had become the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic in 1932. Her flight from Newfoundland to Ireland made her the first woman to accomplish that feat, and from then on in, she was the superstar in American aviation, arguably the most famous woman in the world.
All right, and there you go. And then what happened?
In 1937, Steve, she decided she was going to cap off her career with a world flight. She was going to circumnavigate the globe at the equator, as close as she could to the equator. It was going to take a little bit over a month for her to do that, and the distance was over 27,000 miles. She was going to go off in a blaze of glory and eclipse Wiley Post's world record, which was set several years earlier. That's when she became lost. The famous flight from Lae, New Guinea to Howland Island ended in her disappearance. Now, none of this is news. This is all just part of the record. The problem here with the Earhart thing, Steve, which your listeners must pay attention to, the whole idea that the Earhart disappearance is a mystery is absolutely false. This is a false narrative that has been foisted upon the American people since 1937. We probably knew that the Japanese had her the first day she went missing. Okay? Mm-hmm. She was picked up by the Japanese at Mille Atoll. She landed at Mille Atoll in the Marshall Islands, which is about 800 miles northwest of Howland, which was her destination. We don't know how she got to Mille. We don't know whether she was asked to go to Mille by FDR or whether she was lost and she wound up at Mille. Research is still ongoing. However, we do know she was there. The witnesses established that, and she was at Mille. From Mille, she was taken to Jalawit, the Japanese headquarters in the Pacific. From Jalawit, or the Central Pacific, or the Marshall Islands, actually. From Jalawit, she was taken to Kwajalein, and from Kwajalein, she was taken to Saipan. Saipan was the Japanese headquarters in the Northern Pacific, the Japanese stronghold in that area. That's when she was taken, and that's where she died with her navigator, Fred Noonan, Steve.
Okay, a couple of things. So most people, Mike, right, believe that she probably crashed. Am I correct?
This is the false narrative that's that the government establishment wants the American people to believe. The truth about what happened to her, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to have this stain the legacy of FDR. All of this is in my book. We're not even going to be able to broach the surface of this, Steve. For example, in my... Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
In my office, Steve, I have a framed newspaper headline. It's of the San Mateo Times. July 1st, 1960, San Mateo Times. And that headline is banner headline, 100-point headlines. It says, Amelia Earhart mystery is solved. Famed aviatrix died on Saipan. This headline appeared in San Mateo, California, July 1st, 1960, the result of Fred Gerner's initial investigations on Saipan. Fred Gerner, the KCBS newsman who investigated the initial claims of Josephine Blanco Akiyama, who as an 11-year-old saw Amelia Earhart land at Tanapag Harbor on Saipan in a Japanese seaplane. Okay? Josephine told a Navy dentist her story. The Navy dentist told that story to Air Force professor, an English professor named Paul Briand Jr., who wrote a book called Daughter of the Sky, which began as a biography, and this information just got into the end of his book. From there, Gerner jumped on this, went to Saipan, interviewed hundreds of eyewitnesses, and came up with what he called his original 13. All of these eyewitnesses on Saipan identified Amelia Earhart from photo lineups of 10 photos or more, and I mean, that's where it started. That's where the real modern search for Amelia Earhart began.
Now, Mike, you know, we turn on the Discovery Channel. Well, yes, and you know, you're not the first person that I've talked to that has said exactly what you just said when I say those words. You know, you put on the Discovery Channel, and I've had other experts say that almost a quote unquote, Mike, oh no, don't go by that because a lot of that's hype and it's not really researched well. But what I'm getting at, I don't mean just them, but all of us, you know, Mike, all of the regular folks, me and my neighbor, my producers, we have always been told that the woman probably ran out of gas, and you know, the movie was kind of romantic, and you know, you kind of almost get a tear in your eye because you know that she's going into the water. Why did that happen? Why?
Steve,
why such a big
ask you, have you read the book?
I have not read your book completely. I have read bits and pieces. I haven't had the time. But go ahead.
It's all there,
Steve.
Why all the evidence in the world is in this book. Every significant thing that's ever been done to establish Amelia Earhart's presence in the Marshall Islands first, and then on Saipan. It's all in Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last. The reason is that you still think this, and this is what you hear, is as we said at the start, this is a part of the American cultural furniture. The establishment in this country has been feeding this to the American people since 1937. It's become an accepted fact, like night and day, like the sun rises in the west, or rises in the east and sets in the west. That's why it's so hard to break your thinking. I wish you would have read the whole book, Steve, then you would have more of a grasp of the subject matter that we are discussing. Three flag officers, for example, Chester Nimitz, the fleet.
Okay, hold on, Mike. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying I disagree with you or I don't believe you. What I'm saying is, why? You didn't catch my question. Why is it so that we all believe that? Why
because this is what we're being told. This is what the Navy said in 1937 after their search. They said she most probably landed on the sea. There was no evidence to show. They didn't even find an oil slick. There was nothing found. It was just that was the assumption that she went in the water. That was the official assumption. We have evidence that we knew at the time that the Japanese have her. The listening station archives, the records of the Navy stations in the Pacific are suspiciously empty. There's nothing there during that time frame. The Japanese had the ability to track her flight in the Pacific, and they knew where she went. They knew that she was at Amelia Atoll, and they were there. We could not go there because our Navy was prohibited from going to the Marshall Islands. That was Japanese territory. It's all about politics, Steve. This is about protecting the legacy of FDR. And people poo-poo that and say, no, that happened too long ago. That's just too long. That's not that long ago at all. That's 76 years ago, and FDR remains the icon of the Democrat Party. He is their father figure in the Democrat Party, and to have her death on his hands would severely stain his legacy. In fact, his legacy would be ashes if that was known. That's why, to this day, you continue to hear that and now the latest lie is that she went to Nicaragua, Gardner Island, and crashed there.
Well, you know what gets me, Brian, is that, Mike, that, we hear new stuff all the time, like you just said, Mike, that the newest, the latest. And that amazes me that this happened so many years ago. We have great investigators. We have all these ways to find evidence, to find what happened. And new things are coming up. I almost think, Mike, and tell me if you agree with me, that some people want to keep this going because it's kind of exciting and they can feed off of it. Am I correct or incorrect in that regard?
Well, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery is making a great living at this. They've been back to this island 10 times. They haven't found one thing to connect her with ever being there because she was never there. But this is now the official narrative, and they make a good living going over there. They have a nonprofit organization, and they go over there and pretend to look for her. This is nonsense. It's complete nonsense, and this theory is a third-hand idea that was long ago debunked by Fred Gerner, Fred Hooven, and other people that were much smarter than Rick Gillespie is. Okay, there was many people lived on Nicaragua after 1937. That's the junk that he finds over there, and there's nothing new about this. Real Earhart researchers know that this is all just a fraud that's being perpetrated on the American people, Steve. The fact that it's left to people like me, obscure nobodies, to write books about this is because people that are more powerfully placed and have more juice have been told, don't touch this story. This is a sacred cow. This is why this book has been blacked out by the mainstream, and it's only people like you and other independent radio type people who, with a curiosity for the truth, who read this book and recognize the truth for what it is, that will step forward and give me a little bit of help with this, getting the word out.
Mike, what do you feel is the greatest piece of evidence that substantiates what you believe to be true?
What do I feel is the greatest piece of evidence?
Yeah, what's the biggest piece of evidence that substantiates what you say?
All the evidence that we have is the eyewitness evidence, is all the hard evidence that was found. Okay, we have Robert Wallach found her briefcase in a blown safe on Garapan during the invasion of Saipan in 1944. That was hard evidence. He found that briefcase that belonged to Amelia Earhart and gave it to a naval officer. Okay, there has been hard evidence. Her plane was found on Saipan. We have eyewitnesses that saw her airplane on Saipan, Steve. It's the totality of all the evidence that we have that's absolutely convincing. There's no other evidence for anything else. There is no alternative theory because there's no evidence for anything else. It's overwhelming, the mountains of evidence for Saipan, Steve.
Oh, okay, Mike, let me play devil's advocate a little bit. How about if this happened in Japan during around the Second World War, 40s, 38, Saipan, how come no one from the Japanese side has ever come out, or have they? As you said, I have not read your book. Any evidence from the Japanese side?
Yes, there is. We had Thomas Devine, who was on Saipan, who wrote his own book that got me started with this in 1987. Thomas Devine was a sergeant in the Army's 244 4th Postal Unit on Saipan. He wrote a book called Eyewitness, the Amelia Earhart Incident, about his experiences on Saipan. Now, during the 1970s, a woman named Michiko Sugita, who was a Japanese national who was living on Saipan in 1937, whose father was the civilian chief of police on Saipan, told her as a child, she was, I think, about 11 years old or 12 years old, I think 12, on Saipan in 1937, her father told her, and other policemen on Saipan told her about Amelia Earhart being on Saipan, and that they had to execute her because she was taken as a spy, and some of them were very unhappy that they had to do that. This woman contacted Thomas Devine and corresponded with him for about 3 years, gave him all her information, and then suddenly she disappeared off the map. The Japanese authorities apparently found out who was leaking, and she disappeared over there.
Interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Mike Campbell, the author of Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last, earharttruth.com. Mike, this is so shattering to what most of us have been told. What is your book? Do you break down each fact and then come up and just put it all together towards the end? Is that how your book is formatted?
We build it piece by piece. We have the Marshall Island. We start with the flight. Then we go to the Saipan witnesses. Then we go to the Marshall Island witnesses. These are all separate chapters. Then we have a separate chapter on the GIs on Saipan who contacted Thomas Devine. 26 eyewitness accounts of seeing her airplane or other evidence of Earhart on Saipan. We go then to the Marines that dug up her remains on Saipan, Griswold, Henson, and Burks. There's a chapter about a Marine intelligence officer named Tracy Griswold who was in charge of recovering her remains on Saipan and returning them to the United States. Yes. And then from there, we go into why this is such a sacred cow, why this is such a political football, why she has been sacrificed on the altar of expediency, and then we finish with the conclusion when we put it all together. But this is the thing about the book, Steve, is we take everything that's been done and plus new research. We still have research that's ongoing. But my book has everything that's ever been done, plus the research between 2002 and 2010 that was done that I did on Fred Gerner's files. Fred Gerner died in 1994. He did not get to write the second book that he promised to write, okay? But he would have written a book much similar to this. He was very close to the smoking gun files in Washington, D.C. I interviewed an O&I officer, a former officer, who saw the real Earhart files, okay? That's in this book. It's all here. If you had read the book, there's no way that you would not be convinced because you don't have an axe to grind. You're not one of these people that are going out there making a living on this.
No, I have no axe to grind at all. My goal is always to get the truth out to people, to let them make the decision, and that's where I'm at. Now, so what you're saying is there's a government, they're holding back. There's a cover-up. But let me ask you a hypothetical question. If one day, like you and I could sit down with President Obama, you and I are lucky we could have a beer summit. Didn't he have a beer summit with somebody? And we could just sit down and ask him this question, just confidentially. Would he know about what the truth is, do you think? People higher up is what I'm getting.
Very, very doubtful. He's got his own agenda, and he's got things that he's doing to us that have nothing to do with Amelia Earhart. He has no time for that. He could care less, just like Hillary Clinton could care less either. She was seen with Rick Gillespie 2 summers ago because it gave him credibility to be seen with the Secretary of State. But I bet she didn't have a clue either about what happened to Amelia Earhart. But the point is, Steve, is that anybody can find out. All they have to do is go back and read Fred Gerner's book, and then read Vincent V. Loomis's book, read Joe Klaus's book, read Thomas Devine's book, and read my 2 books, especially Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last, that brings everything together. What I'm telling you and what I've been telling you is nothing new. This is not new. It's not a secret. It's suppressed. It's being completely suppressed and denied by official establishment sources, yes. But as far as anybody who's curious that wants to find out about the truth, all they have to do is start with Fred Gerner's book. It's right there. It's right there in black and white.
Well, that's very interesting, that there's more evidence. Mike Campbell is telling us there's more evidence out there. It's just not him. Mike, do you think the family of Amelia knows what happened? According to you, you say this is what occurred. Do you think they know that?
Well, most of her family, her direct family, are gone now, and nobody has ever admitted to that except for her mother. Now, that's a very interesting question. It's very possible that her mother was told and her sister was told. Very possible. Her mother wrote a letter to Anita Snook, who was Amelia's first flight teacher, and her mother indicated in a 1947 letter to Anita Snook that she knew the Japanese had her, and she knew the Japanese brutally murdered her. So, because Amelia was close with Eleanor Roosevelt, they were known to be close friends. And it's quite possible that Eleanor did tell Amy Otis Earhart, who was Amelia's mother.
Wow, I'll tell you, and I got to take a breath and kind of digest this because it's so different than actually, now that you mention it, Mike, our brains are like computers, and I've heard bits and pieces throughout the years of this thesis, what you say is written in stone and is factual. This is just phenomenal. What do you think if this comes out into the mainstream, Mike, where people believe it and this is the people know this is what happened? Let's assume that happens. Will this tarnish her in any way? Will it make it better or worse?
No. The truth would never. I don't see how the truth could ever tarnish her. She has been tarnished as a bad flyer, as a bad radio person, and a sloppy planner because of her loss. She's taken it in the shorts ever since this happened. FDR has been protected. The one that will be tarnished, if and when this ever comes out, will be FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt. He's the one that will be completely tainted because he was afraid to lift a finger at that time. We were not ready to face off with Japan. It was 1937. We were an isolationist nation. We had cracked the codes. We know that we had the Japanese codes. Therefore, we know that we knew that they had her. It's all there. It's all there for anyone to look. In my book, Steve, Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last, has it. Not that there aren't unanswered questions. There are many unanswered questions in the Earhart disappearance. First, one of the biggest ones is why did she go to Millie, and how did she get to Millie? Why did she go to Millie, and why did she miss Howland? Fred Noonan was too good a navigator to miss Howland Island by so much.
Let me stop you there. Those are good questions. Why did she go to the place where she was captured? You have been researching this for a long time. I know you don't have evidence, I guess, but you must have an opinion. What's your opinion on that, Mike?
My opinion is split, Steve. It's sometimes I very much think that she was asked to go there. That we have her secretary told Fred Gerner that she was asked to do this. She had met with Oscar Westover, the chief of the Army Air Corps, before her second flight, before she began her world flights. She had secret meetings with these very high-ranking officials. Margot DeCary was very close to Amelia. She believed that she was asked to do this. This is what Margot DeCary said. Other people say, how could she have gotten involved with such a stupid idea? The Japanese no way would ever let us come in there to look for her. As soon as they had her at Millie, they rushed her off to Jalowit and then to Kwajalein and then to Saipan. She never had a chance. She was sacrificed. She died a wretched, miserable death on Saipan, okay? This woman deserves much better than she's gotten. But in order to protect the legacy of FDR, this book and other books like it are completely ignored and suppressed by the establishment mainstream.
Well, okay, I understand that, but you're here now. We've only got about 3 minutes left. And you just said something that caught me, and it probably caught other people, that, ladies and gentlemen, you listening out there. The woman that we've seen on book covers and on television, pictures, pretty and just, hair blowing in the wind. You just said that she died a miserable death. How did she die? What do we know about that?
Well, we think that she died either of there's two schools of thought. There's several witnesses were told that she died of dysentery on Saipan. We have a woman who claimed to have actually seen her shot on Saipan, but she claimed that happened in 1944. From what we know, we don't believe that Amelia lasted 7 years on Saipan to 1944. We think it might have been somebody else. We really don't know. She died on Saipan before the invasion, well before the invasion, because her remains were found, were almost certain, by the Marine trio who, I have a whole chapter about that incident on Saipan in 1944, and her bones were skeletal, and so were Noonan's. If she was shot in 1944, as the one eyewitness says she was, her bones would not have been skeletal. Okay.
Mike, I got a couple of things to say, but before I say them, I want to mention your book again. Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last. It is by Mike Campbell, earharttruth.com. This is really interesting. Mike, what could our government do right now to get out of the muck, if that's where we're at, and your thesis is that it's all nonsense. Here's the truth. What could our government do to straighten this out? What could anybody do to make this mainstream and make the mainstream, as you say, believe and get on board? What could the government do?
Well, Steve, you answer the question yourself. People in this country will believe just about anything they're told nowadays, and usually for the wrong reasons. But that's true. I mean, it's hard now. If we had anyone from the government that had any credibility and they wanted to do something, they would go to the people who are actually involved with the security archives, wherever this stuff is kept, because it is kept somewhere deep in the darkest recesses, and they would get this information, they would get the files, and they would come clean. But, Steve, pigs will fly before that will happen.
Well, I hope you're wrong about pigs will fly before people bring out any kind of truth. But what I do want to say, and we've only got about a few seconds left, that Mike Campbell says he's got a ton of proof in his book. And if you're into this subject matter, and it's really something new that most people haven't heard, hey, there's evidence there. Mike, I'm going to read your book page by page, piece by piece, letter by letter, because I want to see the evidence. It's an interesting topic. I want to see if I believe with you, my friend. I want to see if I agree with you. But okay, I believe it's something that anybody interested in Amelia Earhart owes it to himself to see what you're all about, and if it's true and it makes sense,
Steve, I would ask your listeners to go to Amazon.com, search out my name or Amelia Earhart, The Truth at Last. Look at the reviews on the Amazon site. The reviews are uniformly excellent for this book. Okay, we have lots of reviews, relatively speaking, for Earhart books. There's very little interest in the Earhart, relatively speaking. But the reviews are great, and please support this. This is not just a book, Steve. This is a cause, a very worthy cause. And someday the truth will come out, the government will admit this, and I will be on board as being among those, that pitched in.
Mike, the truth will set us all free. Somebody smarter than you or I both said that, I think, a long time ago. Thank you, Mike, for being our guest. I appreciate it. And maybe we'll have you on again, Mike, when things, who knows, when more people get on board with your thesis. Thank you very much.
Okay, Steve, thanks a lot. So great to be with you.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, the second and fourth Wednesday of every month, join us. We have great topics on board, things that aren't lots of people don't want to talk about, people just don't talk about. I'm here to get the truth out for me and for you, so stick around and always come back. Bye.
The Kovacs Perspective is brought to you by the WTOE Radio Network at throughoureyes.org. All WTOE shows are available as a podcast. Visit our podcast page to learn more. The Kovacs Perspective was written by Steve Kovacs, directed by Tom Bendenwald Jr., technical director and audio engineer Len Azzarone, Assistant Audio Engineer Lori Vescuso. For more information about the Kovacs Perspective, visit www.allsourcesecurity.com. All words, ideas, and comments expressed on the Kovacs Perspective are those of Steve Kovacs and not necessarily those of the National Federation of the Blind, the NFB Northeast New Jersey Chapter, or the WTOE Radio Network. Until next time, I'm Keith Zally.
Done it again.
That's all, folks.